Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today we're reviewing for you Bright Memory Infinite on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by the wonderful Scott McRae for NintendoLife.com and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Everyone has that film, album, or game that despite how objectively flawed it is, you can't help but love it. I mean, something like the 1995 Mortal Kombat film isn't by any means a masterpiece, but that doesn't stop us looking forward to Shang Tsung telling us how disappointed he is. Bright Memory Infinite fits into that guilty pleasure camp as well. We can't give it a full recommendation, but we also sort of loved it. Bright Memory is a first-person shooter with a heavy focus on melee elements. Made by a sole developer, and I do apologize for the pronunciation of the creator, Zheng FYQD Tiancheng, Bright Memory first released back in 2019 with Episode 1, but rather than opting to create a second episode, it was developed into Bright Memory Infinite and released on PC in 2021, with console releases finally showing up now. Set in 2038, you assume the role of Shelia, a member of the science research organization who is tasked with investigating an abnormal weather event. That's putting it lightly. Once crash landing in the area, Shelia discovers a black hole has formed, and that SIA, a rival military company, is in the area and its leader, General Lin, is seeking an ancient artifact. The plot is unintelligible at times. For example, at one point you're knocked back by a blast, and when you wake up you're suddenly fighting ancient warriors. The moment is given what is effectively a, that's weird from the characters, and then for the rest of the game, you fight a mixture of these ancient warriors and SIA troopers with no more elaboration on their place. It's just kind of like, yep, this is happening. Honestly, it feels like you've been thrust into the plot of a game about 5 hours into the story, and considering how abruptly it ends, it's hard to get too invested. It's just like Act 2 of something grander. And despite Infinite being in the title, Bright Memory is over in about 2 hours, and that isn't 2 hours of pure gameplay. We're including the cutscenes in that tally. That being said though, it is a wild 2 hours. Outside of the cutscenes, the game doesn't slow down at all and manages to hit you with some wild set pieces, such as a random car chase mission to fighting enemies on the wings of a burning aeroplane, straight into a scrap with some reanimated Guardian Lion statues. The game packs a Call of Duty campaign's worth of set pieces into its short runtime, but it also doesn't really offer anything to do outside the campaign, apart from replaying it again, but harder. Where Bright Memory shines is in that core gameplay. Shelia is equipped with 4 guns, a sword, and some sort of ESP powers with her magic arm. The gunplay feels great. Everything has a good weight to it, aside from the shotgun feeling a little bit underwhelming, and each weapon comes with an alternate fire, which are generally explosive and produce an obnoxious amount of screen shake in the shotgun and machine pistol's case. The melee combat is also surprisingly versatile with its own set of launchers, combos, and area of effect attacks, making it surprisingly, as we said, versatile. You also have access to some good movement options like a 7-way air dash, rolls, slides, and even a grappling hook, which is sadly completely underutilized due to it only being used on predetermined grapple points. It's basically just a way of keeping you in an area before something appears that you can grapple on. Whilst the combat mechanics in your kit feel great to use, it's a shame that your adversaries aren't really worth it. Most enemies go down without much of a fight, even on higher difficulties, meaning you don't need to use the majority of your kit, as your assault rifle and ESP suspension will more than suffice. Enemies can also be found running into walls, clipping into the environment, T-posing, and aiming shots and grenades at the opposite side of the arena. The bosses do fare far better in terms of the combat and AI departments, but there's about 4 of them in the whole game, so Bright Memory can be a bit messy at times. We encountered several glitches, such as you and your enemies getting stuck in geometry, foes appearing out of thin air, and even a few crashes. The game does run fairly well on Switch, and handheld mode is a far smoother experience than docked mode, and the game does look decent as well. I mean, you can probably see that. However, some text elements like your gun's ammo count encounter, and even the credits are extremely blurry, with the latter being nigh on illegible in handheld mode. Bright Memory Infinite is a short but could be much sweeter kind of shooter, and a hard one to recommend. It's glitchy, it has an incoherent story that just ends at one point, the AI is inconsistent, and the whole thing is over in just about 2 hours, and yet, in spite of all that, we still had fun due to its strong core gameplay and frankly ridiculous story and set-piece moments. For a game made by one person, it has a really solid foundation and some impressive production values despite the glitches. However, it desperately needs further iteration to be worthy of recommendation to anyone outside of a select few. You've reached the end of the review, and that means it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and yeah, I have some very mixed feelings about this. There are some things, like the core gameplay, as was mentioned in the review, the core gameplay is fantastic. It's just, you know, this sort of high-octane, you know, sort of crazy shoot and slash kind of thing. It's the sort of thing that Devil's Third should have been, but it's also massively underutilized at the same time. And there are instances where it's all too easy to just cheese things. It's odd. There is an upgrade system in the game, but you don't really need it. And even though the rocket punch is super satisfying, I just felt no need to actually upgrade anything at any time. I did upgrade things, but it just sort of made me feel, okay, well now I'm doing a bit more damage against enemies that was already too easy to kill. And there are also all these instances where it's not super easy to tell where you're supposed to go. I mean, the game kind of points you in the right direction. Is like, hey, you've got a wall run up here and then jump off, and that mechanic works some of the time, and other times it just fails to, and therefore you plummet into some shallow water below, and that's an instant death and a long loading screen. And every time I ran into one of those instances, I was just, I wouldn't even say fully frustrated, I was just like a bit bored and didn't really want to go back into the game. But when I was actually in the fray and like doing all the random rooty tooty point and shooty kind of stuff, I was thoroughly enjoying it. It's a very odd game. Very impressive for a single person, but it's just not enough here. It feels like a fleshed out tech demo rather than a full game. And yeah, as I said, very impressive. It's got some really impressive tech going on, good optimization on the Switch, some really interesting ideas, but none of it is fully realized. There's also one mission that I just can't forgive, and it's this random stealth mission, and you randomly have to pick up a cleaver because for some reason, I don't know, like your suit's not working or something. I swear it didn't really explain it, or if it did, it just completely passed me by, and you've got to do a stealth mission. And then it's over. It's also really easy, and it just really upset the flow of the game for me and just felt like padding. Still impressive for a one-man gig, but the combat is underutilized. The upgrades feel a little bit sort of needless at times, and yeah, it's hard to recommend. If you can grab this on sale for like a $5 or something, then I'd say go for it. But at retail, I can't recommend it.